Hello everyone, welcome back. Got a bit of a format change here. You may have seen previously, if you've been here for 3 years, I started a podcast called the Gaming Improved podcast that I did with my friend Tim. And we did, I think, 3 of them. They're like an hour and a half each. So yeah, that was a pretty big investment there. A lot of time to make those big long-form podcasts. Yeah, I figured since it's just me, I would change the name a little bit. Probably shorter, a lot shorter I would say, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, somewhere around there. Just pick a couple topics, rattle them off, give my 2 cents. I was trying to come up with a name for it, and I just landed on Colin's Corner because it has 2 meanings to it. In the sense that, oh, hey, come sit in my corner, listen to me talk about stuff. And also, because all my little videos have that dude in the corner in the thumbnail, it's a little bit of a double play on words there, you see. Didn't know I was that clever, did you? But anyway, so that is the premise. Basically just gonna bring up a couple topics per episode, talk about them, try to relate them to a story that I have, which, luckily in this case, the topic in this episode here, I have 2 stories that I can relate to it, give you my perspective on it. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump right in. The first one I would like to talk about is YouTuber safety, which has a lot of different meanings to it. I mean, there's a lot of incidents you hear, people at fan meetups getting attacked. One really bad case where somebody got shot and killed. I think it was at like VidCon or something like that. It was something that definitely shouldn't have happened, but it was a random circumstance. But yeah, and then you have on the lighter end of the spectrum, if you listen to H3H3 Productions, they have mentioned in several videos and several of their podcasts that people have shown up at their house, and I think they might have moved, or maybe they're still in the same house. But either way, I think they're not dealing with that issue anymore. And a lot of people, when they hear stuff like that, it's like, oh, I don't see what the big deal is. Well, let me rewind that back. Probably not a lot of people. Probably 10% of the weirdos who would actually go to their houses. I would say the majority realizes that that's a social boundary that you're not supposed to cross. I mean, if you went to go see Iron Man, for instance, you're not allowed to go to Robert Downey Jr.'s house and just meet him in person. It's not how it works. But for some reason, it seems like on the internet side of things, that social boundary is a lot more gray in some people's eyes. I guess because it's more of a personal setting, so they feel closer to that person than they would, let's say, a movie star or a comedian they see on TV. But still, very creepy. Don't show up at people's houses. It's not good. And then an extreme version of that circumstance is recently, they haven't talked about it too much, so I would imagine it's not something they want to go around talking about forever, so I'll just briefly mention it. But recently, Gavin Free and Meg Turney, they had a home invader who, very disturbed young man, he went there specifically to kill them. And that is obviously a very extreme circumstance. That doesn't happen every day. But it's something that you really have to consider when you do this sort of thing. When you go online and potentially give out information about who you are, where you live, what kind of shops you go to. Jake Paul obviously didn't realize that when he started, and unfortunately showed his house in almost every vlog, so he got to the point where he was basically having to leave the neighborhood because of all the commotion he started. Which apparently he didn't start intentionally. I guess somebody just followed him home one day and then put his house online, or maybe he showed the front of his house or something, but he was on the H3 podcast and he explained it. So yeah, he's a lot different when you see him in that kind of format. He's a lot more laid back and he seems like a regular human. And then you watch his videos and you're just like, ugh, God, the level of cringe, it's killing me. But yeah, so that's basically how that story ended. Back to the home invasion. Luckily, police showed up extremely fast. 4 minutes, I would say, they showed up. Very quick response time, and the guy was trying to leave. They shot him dead, killed him in the driveway. So luckily, nothing happened. They were completely safe. They didn't have to use any weapons in this circumstance. So they were able to basically hide out the event, and then police arrived and settled the rest of it. So it just goes to show in extreme cases that sort of thing is just not okay. Obviously, this is a very specific circumstance. He wasn't just a fan wanting to come hang out and get an autograph or something. He technically was a fan, which makes it even weirder. I guess he was very jealous of their relationship and didn't like it. So yeah, that was the very negative side of fandom and all that. But yeah, just keep that in mind when you go online, that you are very publicly facing at that point, and there are certain levels of privacy that you start losing the bigger you get. And of course, it opens the opportunity to have things like that happen. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, I was going to try to relate these stories to something that I've experienced. Certainly not on that level. I would say I've had experiences more similar to the H3H3 experience, where it's just very strange individuals somehow finding where you live. And no one's ever come to my house, but I did have some weird... I don't know what this guy's problem was. To give some reference here, I have a Facebook page that I've run, I think, longer than my YouTube channel. I mean, technically, I started my YouTube channel in, like, 2006 or 8 or something like that. But I was just doing random videos here and there. Like, I would upload Dead Rising videos in the Mega Man armor, or my friends and I just hanging out, doing crazy things. But yeah, I revamped the channel, I think, around 2012. But basically, this Facebook page I had before that, it was actually, there was a certain period of time, I would say about a year or two, where I had just unbelievable stats on that page. I would be getting, I think at my peak, I was getting like 2.5 million visits per week. 2.5 million people visiting my page per week and like liking my posts, sharing my posts, stuff like that. So I had a lot of reach, needless to say. So, obviously, that brings a lot of the weirdos out, and there were some in the group that were just kind of like trolls to be trolls, which was very frustrating to deal with. Especially when we had a shared page that we all did together, and then you have the edgy little meme lords who are trying to upload offensive posts. And, I mean, whatever. Upload offensive posts all you want, but not when all of us are at risk, because all of us got post-banned, I think, 4 times, I would say. And what sucks about that is when you get post-banned on Facebook, it bans your account tied to the page. So my Facebook account got banned every time the page got post-blocked. So it started as like a warning, and then a day, and then like a week, and then a month, and the month is when I had it. I was like, alright, now I'm not... After I got banned for a month, I was like, alright, I don't care what anyone says, I don't care if you have any arguments, I am going to start deleting and blocking any admin who tries to post offensive stuff. Because, I mean, at that point, it's like, alright, all of us are getting banned because you want to be edgy and offend people. I mean, put that in perspective. That's just ridiculous. But anyway, because of this, there were certain subsects of people who didn't like me on that page, and probably came to my page. Some people would send them to my page too, which was very annoying. They would say like, oh yeah, go to his page and say Colin is gay or something like that. And it didn't really bother me because I just went through and I just banned all of them. Every time I saw one, I would just ban them. But yeah, one of them, I don't know if he was just found my page on his own or if he just was just a loser. Like, I don't know what this guy's problem was, but he basically would just come on all of my posts and just insult me and talk about, oh, this is lame, blah, blah, blah. And I would argue with him a couple times, but eventually it's just like, dude, I don't have time for this. I mean, I have way better things to do than sit here and argue with some loser on the internet. But yeah, it eventually got to the point where he found my main account, which was tied to my page, which I didn't post publicly. So first of all, don't know how he found that out. And second of all, I would have posts like, oh, you know, I'd go to GameStop or something like that. And I think I might have shown the receipt in one of them. And this 4chan deep web loser was able to somehow dox me based off of the receipt that I had. So he would literally just like, oh yeah, this is you, and he'd have pictures of me. And at one point, he even found my mom on Facebook. And this was like 2012, I would say, so this isn't recent at all. Haven't had anything like this since. But yeah, he found my mom on Facebook, and he kept finding pictures of me specifically, which at the time I didn't really show my face at all. So I was just like, alright, I don't know what this guy's doing. So he started posting those in the comment section, and I was like, alright, that's it, you're banned. And then he was posting me directly to my Facebook page, and he was showing me my street address, and he was showing me like my actual house address. Like, he was like, oh yeah, this is where you live. And I was just like, I immediately just blocked him, and then I told everyone else on Facebook to block him as well. Like, I gave them his Facebook profile and everything. So, realistically, looking back, I probably should have reported him to the police. I probably should have just gotten that on record. Probably got some kind of legal action going there, because obviously at the time I didn't really care. I was just like, oh cool, you found my address, you can use Google. Realistically, knowing all this stuff now, where it's like people will just show up at your house, you'll have certain situations where, like what happened recently, where a crazy fan could come to your house and try to kill you. And not to give away my living situation or anything, but one of my windows, I won't tell you which one, just in case you are planning to come break into my house, but one of the windows in my house is like, literally, if you break the window, you're in my room. And granted, I do have dogs and I have guns, so probably won't be an easy fight to take me out. But the problem is, again, I don't wake up quickly, so if you smash through my window, if some psycho wants to come to my house and kill me and smash through the window, he's right there. And I'm in the middle of waking up like, oh, what? Probably won't have enough time to go grab a weapon. So, you gotta think about that stuff. I mean, clearly in this case, some guy could easily find where I lived. So, people who are way bigger than me, like PewDiePie and all that, I'm sure his house is public record at this point. I'm guessing you reach a certain level where it's just public domain where you live. Like, Jake Paul doxing Post Malone and giving away his house. Which I think people already knew about, kind of, but just not on the grand spectrum of having all that Jake Paul reach, finding your house. So yeah, moral of the story, don't go to people's houses, don't dox them. Be a normal human being. But, speaking of the Pauls, that leads me into my next topic, which is going into Logan Paul's behavior, which a lot of people, again, I said a lot of people in the first section of the podcast here, but I don't think it's a lot of people. I think a lot of people who like him defend him, but I think for the most part, like 99% of normal functioning adults, even, let's scale that back a little bit, even I would say 15 and higher, 13 and higher maybe. There's a certain age where you should look at this stuff and say, yeah, that's not okay. I mean, obviously both of them are pretty cringy to a degree, but Jake Paul seems to be more of just you watch his stuff and you just kind of shudder. Like, ugh. You can tell how uncomfortable the other people, like he recently just crashed a wedding and was just an absolute asshole the entire time. But again, that's relatively, I mean, it's not like he was taking a golf club and like whacking the groomsmen or something like that. He was doing very cringy, socially unacceptable things, but it wasn't detrimental to society, essentially. I mean, the fact that he's putting that out on the internet, that part's definitely a detriment. You don't want kids thinking that's okay. But on the other side, his brother is an absolute sociopath, maybe bordering on psychopath. And I'm not even exaggerating. I'm not hamming it up for a joke. He legitimately, if you watch his videos, he does come off as like just completely remorseless. Doesn't care about anything he does. I mean, the dead body thing in the woods should have been a dead giveaway. But I mean, he's done, quote, pranks where he got his head blown off in front of a bunch of his 9-year-old fans. I mean, he even shows the video of his audience, and they're all a bunch of 9-year-olds watching Logan Paul get sniped in a hotel building. I mean, this kind of stuff is just like, who would think to do that? It's like going to a kindergarten and like pretending to have a bomb strapped to your chest. Like, it's horrible. No normal human being would make a kid think that their idol just got sniped in the face. But yeah, you have more examples of that. He took his poor little koi fish out of the pond, and you can hear his friend in the background like, dude, stop, don't do that. Which his friends, when you get to the point where your friends are like, hey, maybe that's not okay, you should probably start listening to them. I mean, he had another one where his friend's dog died and he was trying to plug his merch. Let's go through the list here. He went to Japan and was just a disrespectful asshole, just literally treating them like they weren't human beings. He was throwing Pokeballs at them. It's like, dude, how do you not realize how racist that is? I mean, if he was going around like a black neighborhood and he was doing similar stunts like that, like if he was trying to throw watermelon at people, that's literally the equivalent. I know you might think that's an extreme comparison, but going to Japan and throwing Pokeballs at them, you're basically, I mean, you're being extremely racist at that point. It's like, oh yes, you are Japanese, so you must like Pokemon, so I'm going to throw Pokeballs at you on the street. I know you're just trying to get to your job, but I'm going to dress as Pikachu, my friend's going to dress as Snorlax, and we're going to throw Japanese culture at you. Look at us Americans. Like, I have no problem with that whole issue of cultural appropriation is just stupid in general. I mean, I think you should be allowed to appreciate other cultures. Like Japan, for instance, they have very nice, cool culture over there. And you could tell that in the video where, when he smashed that Game Boy, I lost it. That was, even more than the dead body thing, I was more pissed off about the Game Boy. Because he smashes this Game Boy, and then he brings it back to the guy, and he's like, oh yeah, this doesn't work. It's like, dude, you literally... And again, the 3 videos, you can hear his friends in the background just basically saying, dude, what are you doing? Why? And one of them, his friend just goes, why? I think that's the Game Boy one. But yeah, he has the one where he took the koi fish out of the pond, the one where he smashed the Game Boy, and of course, the big hitter, the one that finally got him demonetized by YouTube, is when he tased the dead rat. You literally, in all 3 of those videos, their friends are just, like, genuinely horrified. They're like, oh my god, but they can't really say too much, because, obviously, then they lose the Logan Paul clout. He's like, alright, out of my gang. You've disrespected me. But yeah, this guy, I mean, just, if you look at his videos and you're not a 9-year-old, you'll know how outwardly disrespectful and, again, sociopathic he is. I mean, I can't wrap my head around that. I've never gone into a place and bought something and just smashed it outside. Like those losers who they'll wait for a console launch or the new iPhone launch, and they'll get like first in line, and then they'll come out and just smash it in the parking lot. It's like, great, good job, guy. I'm sure your parents are finally proud of you. So yeah, that's really all you see from this Logan and Jake Paul thing. It's basically just like, hey, give me attention. I didn't get enough of it growing up. Or maybe the opposite. Maybe they got too much attention. Maybe they got to the point where it's like, oh yes, son, you can grow up and do whatever you want. You are perfect. You are never wrong. Don't let anyone ever say that you're wrong. So either of those are the case. Either they didn't get enough attention, or they got way, way too little discipline as a kid. And quite frankly, I know it probably doesn't sound like it, but I'm actually older than both of them. I'm 23, about to be 24 in like 8 months, I would say. So yeah, I'm not this young little kid who doesn't understand. I'm far more mature than both of them. And not even just because I'm older. At that age, I wasn't doing that kind of crap either. That kind of stuff is like 14, 15 max. Once you get past that age, you start realizing, oh yeah, maybe I should start maturing. But no, these two, I think Jake Paul is still 20, or he's 21 now. And Logan is like 22, probably turning 23. Let that sink in how young these two are, with not only the level of success they have, but just the level of complete disregard for the people around them. Like, as I mentioned, Jake Paul is a little bit better, but Logan is just, he is just a maniac. But yeah, as I said, I would try to relate these stories that I have, which specifically I'm going to relate it to the dead rat tasing, which I would imagine, let's say for instance, he killed this rat, or maybe the rat was already dead and he tased it. I don't want to know what happened to that poor rat while it was alive. I hope it was dead the entire time. I hope he didn't go play jigsaw games with it and then kill it, which I'm sure he probably either did or wanted to, and his friends probably weren't with that. But yeah, to relate it to another story, obviously, if you have an animal like that, like rats, I don't mind. Raccoons, possums. If I see a rat, raccoon, or possum in my backyard or something, I'll just, give them the tip of the hat. I'll give them a wave and go back inside. I don't really care about those animals. Even vultures. Even when there are vultures in my trash, I'll just go out there and shoo them away and close the lid. I mean, I'm not one of these guys that sits on a porch with a, 22 caliber and just blows these animals away. I don't really care about the pest and vermin animals. Unless they're specifically interacting with me, I just leave them alone. And even if they were in my house, I still wouldn't go kill them. I mean, I have the guns, I could do it, but it's just, it doesn't feel right. I don't know why that would be something that people think is fine. Now, rats, I kind of understand, because rats are very, especially in New York City. I know Zach, Psychic Pebbles, he has stories where he had to kill rats because in New York City, if you just take them outside, they'll just get back in your house, which I can kind of relate to because I live in Florida. So here, instead of rats, you get cockroaches and mosquitoes in your house, and those things I kill immediately. If I see a cockroach, he's dead on spot. And if there's a mosquito flying around my room, I will follow it around until it finally stops moving, then just smack it and take it out. But yeah, as far as the mammal type animals go, like squirrels, I actually feed those in my backyard. So mammals, I don't know. It feels weird to kill a mammal. Mammals they're too close to humans, even dogs. And rats as well. They're like one of the closest to humans. Oddly enough, rats are actually like very close to humans. That's why they use a lot of tests on them. But yeah, so to get into a mammal killing story, I've only killed one mammal. Technically a marsupial, I think. I don't know if marsupials aren't mammals. But anyway, there was a possum. And I know I just said I wouldn't kill a possum in my backyard, but this is a very different circumstance. This is one that I saw on the street. It was in a neighborhood next to mine. And I was working at the time because we were doing lawns over there or something like that. But yeah, there was this poor little possum in the street. It was actually a big one. I think it was like a mother or something like that. Probably 2 years old, 3 years old. They don't live very long, so it was probably nearing the end of its life. But yeah, this possum, I won't go into detail because the scene that I approached was very graphic. It was still technically able to walk around, but you could tell it had an internal injury that it wasn't. It basically it was going to die at some point that day. And then again, not to go into graphic detail, but he or she, I don't know what this possum was, it definitely wasn't ever going to be able to eat again. Let your imagination fill in the blanks of what I mean by that. Because the the reality of what I saw was very, very graphic, very Dawn of the Dead, Walking Dead kind of scenario. So we picked it up, moved it over to the woods, and then we left it there. And you could tell by the way it was breathing, it was just kind of like, it was in a lot of pain. It was going to die, and it probably wasn't going to die very quickly. I would say, let's see, I think somebody said, now I'm very suspicious about this person, because she was all around the scene of this possum, like, walking in circles in the street. And she was like, oh yeah, he's been there this morning. And then I was trying to say, I was like, well, I don't know how some idiot would hit this possum in the middle of the day. And then she kept trying to make excuses. She was like, oh, well, maybe it was dark outside. I was like, well, I mean, they would have their headlights on, so... And I even said, I was like, this possum's like as big as a cat or a small dog. This is not a small possum. It's like the size of a big mother raccoon. And then she was basically just trying to make excuses about, oh, well, maybe they didn't see it. And I was starting to think, I was like, what do you mean they? I don't think it's they. I think it's you. I think you're the one that hit this possum, and that's why you're trying to make excuses. Because no normal person is going to sit there and be like, oh, well, maybe they didn't see the possum. Anybody else would just be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But no, she kept coming back like, oh, well, maybe it was dark. Maybe they didn't have the headlights on. Realistically, it was, oh, I wasn't paying attention and I hit this possum. Because she kept circling around and checking on the possum, so it seemed like there was a little bit of a guilty conscience there. But anyway, we moved this thing to the woods, and it didn't look like it was going to die anytime soon. It was there all morning. It was probably going to be there all night. I mean, it could have gone maybe a day or two of just like slowly withering away, which would have been a horrible way to die. So I went back to the house, got my gun. I have multiple guns. I have one of them's an AR-15, one of them's like a revolver. I have a Glock now. I didn't at the time, but the gun that I used was a .22 rifle, which is a very small caliber, but I have hollow points for it, so it makes it, even though it's a small caliber, it makes it better, and it's a small animal, so it's not like, that's why I didn't want to bring out like an AR-15 or my revolver, because obviously that's overkill, first of all, and secondly, they're much louder, so if I'm just sitting there shooting an AR-15 into the woods, it's going to look very suspicious, so I went with the .22, it's the quietest of the bullets, it's the smallest of the rifles, so I didn't want to have too much of a presence, I just wanted to, like, shoot it and go home. I didn't want police on the scene hearing about some guy walking around with an AR-15. So yeah, I went back home, got my .22, loaded it up with hollow points, and I made sure when I shot it in the head a couple times, just so I didn't want, because I've heard stories of humans and animals, and basically just anything in general, where sometimes you'll get hit in the head with a bullet, and it either bounces off, or it gets lodged somewhere and it doesn't kill you. So I didn't want to just shoot him once and walk away and be like, problem solved. Because it could have just made the situation worse. So I made sure, put it that way, put it simply, I made sure he was dead before I left. And then I went in, I looked at him, and I made sure before I shot him, I took like a stick and I pet him a little bit, just so I could calm down the possum and let him know it's like, alright, listen, it's okay, it's going to be over very soon. But yeah, I will say, even though it was a situation where I definitely had to kill the possum, I mean, I couldn't just, in good conscience, I couldn't leave it there. But even still, it wasn't like, oh, hey, buddy, come get the video camera, let's kill this possum and then shoot it with a taser afterwards. That's where I'm trying to wrap this around to, is that, let's say, for instance, let's play the devil's advocate and say that Logan Paul had this rat in his house, obviously disease-ridden animal, couldn't have it in the house, he had to kill it, and let's say he killed it, throws it in the trash, it's like, that's acceptable, that's fine. I mean, in a situation like that, it's kind of like you have to do it. It's like having a cockroach in your house. Cockroaches are very filthy animals. You can't just have a cockroach walking around. It's like, if it's in there, you gotta kill it, unfortunately. So, if that was the case, if he just had a rat in his house and he had to kill it and throw it away, even if, like, for whatever reason he wanted to vlog that, oh, guys, look at this dead rat, that would still be bad, but I mean, the fact that he shot it with a taser, twice, by the way, twice. He shot it once, and then when they threw it in the trash, he shot it again. And both times, his friends are horrified. Like, you can see them in the background, they're like, what have I gotten myself into here? So yeah, it's just, it's such a unfortunate thing that he's as popular as he is, because kids should not be learning this lesson. Now, my story would be very different if I went over and I had my buddy film while I shoot this possum, and then after he's dead, hit him with a taser. I mean, obviously that's like very psychotic behavior, which again goes back to him being a sociopath, possibly psychotic. So it's just like, it's very unfortunate that that kind of thing, I mean, finally YouTube cracked the hammer on him and brought down sweet, swift justice because that was going on for far too long, and it really didn't even seem to affect him that much. He came back on YouTube, and he was just like, oh yeah, whatever. Look at me, I am a god, you must worship me. And I'm not even really exaggerating. His return video was basically like, yes, I am Jesus himself. I am back. Do not worry, fellow humans. I mean, sorry, not fellow humans. Other humans who are not me, because I am not human. I have risen above you. So it's that kind of attitude that I'm not a fan of. I mean, even if it wasn't a rat, even if it was just something like a cockroach or like an insect, like a very small ant or something, it's still weird. It's still weird to just basically torture an animal on screen. I don't care if it's the smallest animal possible. He could take a microbe and be like, alright guys, I have a microbe on this test tube. Watch me electrocute the test tube. It's like, why would you even do that? Why does that thought go through your head? I mean, when I had that incident with the possum, I shot it, I put the gun back in the bag, and then I walked home. I didn't look at it any further. Every time I drove past, I was like, alright, I know he's in there. I'm not gonna go check. It's a very weird mindset. I just don't know. I don't know how, first of all, he can be in that mindset himself, where he thinks that's okay. And even further beyond that, I don't know how he thinks it's okay to show that to children. And we're not talking like teenagers. No, his fans are like 6-year-olds. 6 to 9 years old. First of all, that's very weird. Especially the way he talks, where he's like, ah, yes, let's go get some bitches, my friends. It's like, you do realize your fans are like, they're in first grade. You can't be talking like that. I would be hard-pressed if you told me that he had fans who were over 18. I do not believe that. I would not believe you. I would need to see verified proof that he has adult fans. But anyway, that is the end of my rant there. Figured I would finally chime in on that. Given the platform of my channel, it's kind of hard to work these topics into my videos, because typically I'm just doing gameplay or reviews of sorts. And I don't like those channels like, I mean, Leafy. Leafy's kind of been just absolutely destroyed. He gets nowhere near the views he used to. But I've always been annoyed by those channels who just have like gameplay in the background while they talk about random nonsense. So I don't like when I'm in a video just to be like, oh yes, let's talk about the topical things of the day. I might throw a couple in there, but mostly it's about the video itself and about the game I'm playing. So yeah, I figured this would be a good way to change the format a little bit, make it a little easier to separate the content, and I'm probably just going to do that even more. I'm probably going to find more avenues to explore. Think about going into doing weekly movie and game reviews, one a week. The plan that I currently have is Monday through Wednesday, I would still do the typical game content, and then Thursday I would do a movie or a game review, and then Friday I would do the podcast to wrap it all up, because I don't know if you know this or not, but YouTube, the way it works now, is you basically have to upload daily. And daily's too much for me. I need at least Saturday and Sunday just to kind of have a rest. Because people don't realize, especially on the gaming side, it's at least a 7 or 8 minute setup, where you have to get the software open, you have to run the Elgato over to your console, you have to plug the wires through, you have to plug it back into the console, and then you have to run the USB cable over to your computer. And not to mention that, you have to turn all the fans off in your room if you don't want background static. So it's a whole ordeal. I can record multiple videos in one sitting, but usually when it goes past an hour or an hour and a half, I'm just like, alright, I gotta wrap this up. I can't do this anymore. The heat is getting to my brain. So yeah, this would be a nice way just to even out the formats here, because YouTube, I don't know. YouTube's been very iffy. Now granted, 2015, 2016, and 2017, I scaled back my content a lot, and I didn't upload as frequently. So that could be part of the reason why my stats dropped. I mean, they didn't drop too far. They were just kind of like a steady decline. But I think it was mostly due to my inactivity. So this year, I'm just going to go back to the way it used to be. I'm going to upload regularly, try to get the content back to the level it used to be. And then we'll see if it's YouTube or if it's just my upload rate. Because if I do all of this and then at the end of the year, my stats don't return to like the 2012, 2013, 2014 era of content. Because those years were I keep a spreadsheet of all of my years. I list everything. I list how many views I got, how many videos I uploaded, how much money I made that year, how many likes, how many dislikes, how many shares. So I literally have spreadsheets of all this data. And those 3 years, it climbed every single year. So 2012, 2013, 2014, the views just kept going. And then 2015 was I think 2015 was almost even with 2014 or dropped a little bit. Which, granted, is a good sign, because I only uploaded like 20 videos that year. So the fact that 20 videos that year and like 130 videos in 2014. The fact that I was able to still maintain a lot of those views with far less videos is a good sign, so we'll see if that basically has that same effect this year, because it followed for the next couple years. 2016, 2017, those years I didn't upload a lot of videos, and then it showed in the stats, so we'll find out. I mean, we'll see. If it is on YouTube's side and they're just changing the direction of content, like if I have to become a vlogging channel or a food reviewer channel or a toy channel or basically any of those other things, then I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. But if I can turn it around and do content like H3H3 Productions or iDubbbz or any of those fields where they have variety in what they do, then I would definitely like to go in that direction. But yeah, if it gets to the point where it's just like, unless you're a vlogger or a food channel, you will get no reach, then at that point I'm just like, I'm hitting the eject button and I'm popping out of here. So yeah, we'll see about that. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this pilot episode. We'll see how many of these I do. Probably going to try to do it weekly. It's nice to stay consistent. I will give that as advice, free advice for you. You don't need to hit up Ty Lopez and start his program. I will give you free life advice right here. Patterns are very good, very important, getting into a rhythm. Like, for instance, I make breakfast every morning now. I go into the kitchen, I put coffee on the pot. Actually, I have a single-serve one. I don't use the K-Cups. I'm not a big fan of the K-Cups sometimes. I do like them, but sometimes they just don't. It's not the same as getting the ground coffee in your bag. And even beyond that, you can get the beans and grind them yourself. Now that is a little step beyond where I am. I just get the bag of ground coffee. And I have a single serve machine. It's like a Ninja. It's one of those Ninja coffee makers, but it makes 1 cup at a time. So you put in the little dolly, and then you put in 2 scoops of the ground coffee, and then it just makes you 1 cup of coffee. That way there's no waste. Because I was thinking about getting like a coffee pot, but I don't want to make more than I'm going to drink. So I like doing it 1 at a time. And if you want to make it stronger, you can just put extra scoops in there. But yeah, I have a routine. Make coffee, make eggs, make breakfast. Get some of those bacon or sausage. Get some toast. I think I'm talking about this because I'm about to go make breakfast. I'm recording this quite early. So yeah, routines are good. You should definitely, if you can get into any kind of routine, it's very good for you. It's good for your mental health. It's good for staying on top of things. Because the moment you break any kind of routine, you start saying, I can do that tomorrow, or I can do it this day. So I think I'm going to try to get into a routine on YouTube as well, where I just make content. I have to keep up the routine as far as YouTube's concerned. So yeah, the plan is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday will be gaming content. Thursday will be movie or game review, and then Friday will be a podcast wrap-up, which I'll typically, like today, I'll try to find a topic or two to talk about. Or maybe I'll just kind of ramble for an hour, which is probably what this last bit is. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll be back probably Monday. Took a bit of a break this week. I did a video on Monday, and then I took a break for the rest of it, and now I'm doing a video on Friday, so we'll see what I do next week. I think I might try to get into the schedule next week. So stay tuned for that.